With just 1 week left in the average fantasy football regular season, crunch time is officially upon us. Starting next week, it's win or go home. So now is the time to tidy up those rosters and gear up for that playoff push. To help you stay sharp, we've been dropping this informative video to lay out the ever-changing statistical averages given up by the NFL offenses to the five true IDP positions: defensive tackles, defensive ends, linebackers, corners, and safeties. So let's not waste any more time, drop that intro, and get right into the data. Welcome back to the IDP Plus podcast. On this show, I'm your host, Axton Harding. You can find me on Twitter at AxmanIDP. My DMs are always open there. I'm not a regular poster, so don't get too excited as far as that goes. I've got my life is too busy for me to have the time to post regularly. But I'm always willing. I'm always checking my DMs there, and I tend to go into some great detail and potentially add some third-party opinions to give you some other things to think about as you go to make those IDP roster decisions. So feel free to reach out to me there and follow me on Twitter or X. You can always throw your comments or questions into the YouTube comments as well. I will always be keeping an eye on the YouTube comments throughout the week up until, a few hours before Sunday. So the earlier you can get me those roster questions, the the better and the more time I have to address them and go into a little bit more detail. So I always love when I get DMs on Twitter and when you guys throw comments into the YouTube comment section. I just love to converse with you guys and kind of talk through some of those roster decisions that you guys might have on any given week as you prepare for those playoff pushes. So, again, let's not waste too much more time. Here in just a sec, after a quick disclaimer, we'll get right into the numbers. But I always like to throw out a disclaimer before we start showing the data and just kind of lay out the fact that this is not a true one-to-one. What you're going to see, the matchup intel, only serves as a quick look at recent statistical trends to help you make roster decisions like waiver pickups or close call start-sit choices. It's not guaranteed that these stats are how the games will play out any given week. I always advocate for riding with your studs through the tough matchups. Now is not the time to get cute and start underperforming an underperforming player over a tried and true stud just solely because of a favorable matchup. Don't be sitting a Foye Luakon over in favor of a Cody Barton just because the matchups fall on opposite ends of the spectrum. If you have a historical overperformer, keep them in your lineups. This should really only apply to those kind of closer roster decisions where you have a couple of similar players who put up similar IDP stats on any given week, and you just can't quite make that decision on who you should play. This is just to kind of help say, okay, this guy might have more opportunity or this guy might have less opportunity. So that's kind of the baseline for how you should approach the data you're going to see. The final choice for your roster lies with you. Of course, I'm always willing to lend my opinion, so feel free, again, to comment on the video and we can talk things through if that's what you want to do. So let's show the data, and, let's get into this screen here. This one's better. Okay, so give you a quick rundown of the data. These are 3-week averages that you're seeing for any of the stats represented. And the team on the far left is the offense giving up the stats that you're looking at, and the team in the next column, column B, is going to be the team with the opportunity or lack thereof. Players on these teams are going to be the ones who we're either targeting or avoiding given the roster decisions that you want to make. So the red cells equal a bye week in that column. The blue cells are equal to a divisional matchup. That just indicates that these teams are playing for a little bit extra on any given week, so you might just see a little bit tighter matchup in a closer game, which is good for IDP because the more snaps that your team the more snaps your players are on the field, the more opportunity they have to grab some IDP points. So green means good, red means bad. The more green cells within a position's matchup stats, the better the matchup as it relates to the potential opportunity at hand. Be mindful of what players you're dealing with, whether it be overperformers, underperformers, and how your league tallies fantasy points for IDP. So you have some tackle-heavy leagues, you might favor a little bit more of the tackle stats. You have a big play league and depressed tackle scoring, you might favor some of the big play opportunities here. So just more or less want to lay that out there before we jump right into the numbers. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. I've already got it filtered to tackles given up to opposing defensive tackles throughout the last 3 weeks, and we'll just kind of jump into the top numbers there. A lot of bye week teams kind of giving up a lot of numbers, a lot of tackle stats to opposing interior defensive linemen. But the teams who have, you know what, I can even filter out. It's okay. Never mind. All right. So Tampa Bay Buccaneers interior defensive line, your Vita Vea is going to be in a nice high floor matchup with 14 tackles on the table. Philadelphia interior defensive line, Indianapolis, Minnesota, Green Bay, New Orleans, the Cincinnati Bengals, Buffalo Bills, and the New York Jets kind of find themselves in the top end matchups as it relates to tackles given up to the interior defensive linemen. Down here at the bottom, we've got Baltimore, Vegas, Washington, Seattle, Arizona, Jacksonville, Atlanta, Chicago, Dallas, Pittsburgh, and Miami kind of making up the bottom end of this statistical category. So if you need to take any screenshots to get a better look later on, or just kind of maybe you don't have time, but you still want to have this data for later and not have to kind of jump back, feel free to throw in feel free to screenshot or do whatever you have to do there. So now let's filter to the big plays. For the big men, Denver Broncos interior defensive line, Zach Allen might find himself in a nice little opportunity here this week. 2.33 sacks given up by the Las Vegas Raiders to opposing interior defensive linemen over the last 3 weeks. They also have a nice modest tackle floor. Yellow or orange kind of means a more middling matchup as it relates to that particular stat category. So then there might be some pass deflection opportunity where Vegas has given up 2 pass deflections to interior defensive line over the last 3 weeks. Nothing to write home about, but there might be some opportunity there. Some careless passes by Geno Smith. So Denver Broncos, Washington Commanders, Cleveland Browns, Bucks, Saints, Jets, Texans, Chiefs, Cowboys, Colts, and the Eagles kind of make up the top handful of teams who find themselves in the most ideal matchups as it relates to stats given up over the last 3 weeks in regards to the big play categories. Now, again, these teams here that have a nice green tackle cell here also find themselves in the top end of the big play opportunities. Just kind of blend well to higher floor matchups. Your Indianapolis Colts, Philadelphia Eagles, Tampa Bay Buccaneers kind of have a nice modest tackle floor coming into this matchup. And they also find themselves in the most ideal position as it relates to big plays for the interior defensive linemen as well. Then you also have got like a team like Kansas City, who kind of has some extra opportunity in the pass deflection column. So perhaps maybe Chris Jones can get his hands on a batted ball or something like that on the defensive line. Might be a little bit of opportunity for some extra IDP points there. So if you want to take a look at the bottom teams, these teams are playing offenses who have not given up a sack to the interior defensive line over the last 3 weeks. Buffalo, Detroit, Tennessee, Chicago, Atlanta, and Baltimore Ravens kind of have a little bit tougher matchup this week. Now, again, this isn't to say that it's not going to happen, that they're not going to get a sack, that there's going to be no opportunity. It just might be a little bit tougher for these teams to get those big play opportunities. But again, not to say it can't happen. So, quickly filter to pass deflections. If you guys want to take a look there, we've got a couple of nice green matchups across the board, or greenish. Indianapolis Colts interior defensive line. Again, we've kind of talked about them a little bit. Kind of have a little bit extra green all across the board. All right, so let's hide the interior defensive line. We'll filter to defensive end tackle production. These teams find themselves in the most ideal tackle matchups as it relates to defensive end stats given up by their opposition. The Green Bay Packers, Denver Broncos, Houston Texans, Philadelphia Eagles, Tennessee Titans, Cincinnati Bengals, the Atlanta Falcons, Cleveland Browns, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the Indianapolis Colts kind of make up the top 10 there as it relates to their opposition giving up tackles to the defensive end position. And as you can see here, the Denver Broncos also find themselves in a nice little sack opportunity against the Las Vegas Raiders. Raiders have an awful offensive line, so this doesn't surprise me that they're giving up 3 sacks per game on average to the defensive end position. They also give up a nice modest tackle floor as well, so your Nick Bonitos, Jonathan Coopers might have a little extra opportunity for big plays and also have kind of a nice tackle floor or opportunity for it anyways. Again, this kind of blends well with this Denver Broncos team just being familiar with the kind of player you're dealing with. Nick Bonito is not historically a high tackle floor kind of player. He's not going to go out and get you 5 or 6 tackles on any given week. He's more of a guy who's going to get 2 to 3, and you're really banking on the big play opportunity. He's a guy who will go out and grab more big plays than he will tackle opportunities as it relates to kind of the opportunity at hand. So if there's 13 tackles on the table, he might grab a couple of those, but if there's 3 sacks on the table, he might grab a couple of those as well. So he's going to grab a larger percentage of the sack opportunity than he is really the overall tackle opportunity. But again, it just goes to lends well to knowing what players you're dealing with on any given week. I would not sit a Nick Bonito, especially in this opportunity, regardless of his tackle floor, but I just want to throw out an example there. So then we've also got like the Philadelphia Eagles kind of find themselves in a nice little matchup here. But we're gonna finish it, wrap up the tackles here, and then we'll get into the big plays. So the Cardinals, Chargers, Vikings, Commanders, Bills, Lions, Steelers, and the Jets kind of make up the bottom end as it relates to floor production for the tackle stat for the defensive end position. Their oppositions haven't been giving up a whole lot of tackles to the defensive end position over the last few weeks. But again, not to say that they couldn't have a good game. It's just going to be a little bit tougher to go out and grab those stats. So let's filter to the big plays. Teams that find themselves in the most lucrative big play opportunities this week are the Denver Broncos, Philadelphia Eagles, Tampa Bay Bucks, Pittsburgh Steelers, Cincinnati Bengals, Cleveland Browns, Miami Dolphins, Tennessee Titans, Houston Texans, Green Bay Packers make up the top 10 teams playing opposing offenses who have been the most generous to the defensive end position as it relates to big plays. Then you've also got a lot of these teams actually in the top end for sack production or sack opportunities also find themselves in some nice high floor tackle matchups as well. If you can get, I like to think of tackles as more of a floor statistic and sacks as more of a ceiling statistic. So if you have a high floor coming into this matchup, then you're already starting out with a nice kind of baseline of potential IDP production and a lot of opportunity already on the table there. And then if you can couple that with some big play opportunity, then you're kind of looking at a nice little pair. The more columns you can kind of pair together, the more green, the better here. So Philadelphia Eagles kind of have some pass deflection opportunity, some big play opportunity, and a nice tackle floor as well, where the Chargers are giving up a modest amount of tackles, and there's also 3 sacks on average given up to the defensive end position over the last 3 weeks as well, to go with some pass deflection opportunities. So again, Philadelphia Eagles, Denver Broncos kind of find themselves in some nice matchups. Cleveland Browns, Myles Garrett's going to have some extra opportunity with 1.83 sacks on the table coming into this one, a nice modest 10.33 tackle floor, and then also some of the higher some of the better opportunity as it relates to pass deflections from defensive or given up to defensive ends. Tennessee Titans have been pretty generous to opposing defensive linemen. So take a look there. However, you might need to screenshot or do what you need to. Then let's talk about the bottom end matchups. The Chargers, Cardinals, Lions, Raiders, Colts, Vikings, Bills, Chiefs, Seattle Seahawks, Jets, and Chicago Bears kind of make up the bottom end of opportunities available to defensive ends as it relates to sack production. So again, green across, the more green, the better, the more red, the kind of lesser the opportunity. All right, now let's go to everybody's favorite position, and we'll filter to linebacker tackles and get into some linebacker stats. The teams who find themselves in the best opportunity as it relates to the stats given up by their opposition over the last 3 weeks are the Rams linebackers, the Texans, the Ravens, the Seahawks, the Lions, the Green Bay Packers, the Saints, the Bears, the Vikings, the Chiefs, and the Miami Dolphins find themselves in the more ideal matchups as it relates to linebacker tackle production given up by their opposition on average over the last 3 weeks. Rams also seem to have some big play opportunity as well, where Arizona's given up, a sack and a half to opposing linebackers over the last 3 weeks, or half a sack on average in that time. So we've got a couple of green columns there for the LA Rams and Nate Landman. The linebackers there in LA. Then if we want to go to the bottom, we'll look at the bottom end matchups. These teams kind of find themselves in the poorer matchups as it relates to tackles given up to opposing linebackers. The Titans, Cardinals, Colts, Jaguars, Falcons, Chargers, Jets, Broncos, Browns, Raiders, and the Buffalo Bills kind of make up the bottom end opportunity. But again, I'll just kind of reiterate. Last week, we had Cedric Gray in the top 12 linebackers. He was in a bottom 10 matchup for tackle production given up by the opposition. He ended up with a nice week. So it's not to say that players can't buck some of these trends. Your studs tend to outperform the expectations. So again, just because the stats might seem like they are poor on any given week, it's also something to consider of what kind of opposition the offense giving up these stats has played. If they've not played a lot of, or if they've played some poor linebacker cores, perhaps they're not going to give up a whole lot of tackle production. Maybe those linebackers aren't necessarily don't have quite the nose for the football, and they've just kind of had some poorer matchups the last few weeks. So it's just kind of worthwhile to know kind of who their matchups. Again, it could be like quarterback change. If the offense in column A has a quarterback change and has been playing a certain quarterback, like Washington Commanders have been playing Marcus Mariota the last several weeks. This week they might play Jaden Daniels, so these averages are going to be based on Marcus Mariota's numbers and performances as opposed to Jaden Daniels, so they could change or be a little bit more variable. So just some extra things to consider there. So let's look at big play opportunity for linebackers. Let's see. We've got the Rams, again, I mentioned earlier, can have some extra opportunity for big plays. Houston Texans seem to find themselves in a decent opportunity for some big plays as well. I think Aziz Al-Shair went out last week, so you have to keep an eye on Henry To'oTo'o. He's one of those guys who can get involved in the pass rush and has a nice modest tackle floor himself. So if he comes in full-time replacement, might be a guy worth picking up. Now let's kind of filter to pass deflections. See what teams kind of have some opportunity there. Seattle Seahawks linebackers have a modest tackle opportunity to pair with some potential sack opportunity and also pass deflections in coverage. So there might be some extra opportunity to add points via pass deflection, tackles behind the line of scrimmage, sack opportunities. So Seattle Seahawks linebackers seem to be in a good spot this week. Let's see. Again, Detroit Lions, modest tackle floor, some opportunity for sacks, and then also some opportunities for big pass deflections and coverage as well. Minnesota Vikings have been giving up an interception on average to the linebacker position over the last several weeks, so the Washington Commanders linebackers might have some opportunity in coverage. I'd say that's more leaned towards Bobby Wagner, kind of sitting more in the middle of that defense, where Frankie Luvu is going to kind of be more aligned on the edge of the defensive line. He's going to be involved more in the pass rush opportunity as opposed to the coverage of those passing plays. So just some things to kind of take a look at there. We'll just see if you want to take a look at the teams giving up one pass deflection per game to linebacker position. Washington and the Pittsburgh Steelers kind of find themselves in some added big play opportunities here. So that's going to do it for the linebacker position. We'll filter back to the tackles. If you guys missed potential for a screenshot there, feel free to go ahead and grab that now. We're going to hide these columns. Now let's get into cornerbacks. And I will throw out that cornerback stat averages also include nickel corners and slot corners. So for those of you who might be considering players like that who play a handful or a lucrative amount of box snaps, you're going to find their statistical averages or their matchup stats right here in the cornerback tackles. So the Rams cornerbacks find themselves in a nice opportunity. And then the remainder of the top end teams are the Buffalo Bills, the Bengals, the Texans, the Chiefs, the Packers, the Bucks, Minnesota Vikings, Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Baltimore Ravens kind of make up the top 10 teams in the most favorable spots for cornerback tackle production. Teams on the bottom end of this spectrum are the Chicago Bears, Indianapolis Colts, Washington Commanders, New York Jets, New Orleans Saints, Tennessee Titans, Chargers, Dolphins, Cardinals, and the Pittsburgh Steelers kind of make up the bottom end, or they're playing offenses typically not giving up a whole lot of stats to the cornerback position. Also, be mindful when you're dealing with cornerback stats. It's going to be a lot. A lot of it is going to be kind of favored towards or away from towards teams who have a high volume of passing offense, and favored away from teams who don't typically pass the ball near as much. Baltimore Ravens, when they do pass the ball, they throw it to the tight ends. Not a lot of your cornerbacks are going to be guarding tight ends much of the time. They also just have a low volume passing offense, so historically they're not going to produce a whole lot of give up a whole lot of production to the cornerback position. Just kind of things to consider as you're taking a look at some of these numbers. So now let's see what kind of sack opportunities there might be for the cornerback position. Not a whole lot on the table here. They kind of have to be involved in specific blitz packages, but there is some potential opportunity for the Houston corners this week to maybe get back behind the line of scrimmage and get some tackles there. Let's look at the pass deflections. Buffalo Bills corners find themselves in a nice tackle opportunity, some opportunity for potential sacks or plays behind the line of scrimmage, and then also find themselves in a nice matchup relating to pass deflection opportunity as well, where the Cincinnati Bengals are giving up 4.33 pass deflections on average over the last 3 weeks. Again, just something to consider that 2 of those weeks are going to be based on Joe Flacco stats, and only 1 of those weeks is going to be favored to Joe Burrow. But if Joe Burrow came in and completely flipped the script, this number wouldn't be so high, and especially top of the league. So they're still being modest to the cornerback. There's a nice opportunity for Buffalo Bills corners for a high floor of tackles, and also plenty of opportunity for some big plays and coverage as well. They have really the only matchup here that's green across the board. Texans corners, Kamari Lassiter and Bullock are going to be in a nice opportunity as well. They've got a nice modest tackle matchup to pair with one of the more lucrative sack opportunities or potential for big plays behind the line of scrimmage. And then there's also 2 pass deflections on the table as well for the Houston corners. All right, so let's filter to interceptions and just kind of take a look here. Cincinnati Bengals corners kind of find themselves in a nice little opportunity with a modest amount of tackles on the table, some potential for plays behind the line of scrimmage, pass deflections and coverage, and then their opposition's also given up 2 interceptions to opposing corners. Buffalo Bills have been a little generous to the cornerback position of late, so they find Cincinnati corners kind of find themselves in a nice little opportunity here. Again, Buffalo Bills kind of had the charge with plenty of opportunity for their cornerbacks in their Week 14 matchup as well. So let's hide the cornerback position. Get into the safety stats. Teams whose safeties find themselves in the most lucrative opportunity for tackle production given up by their opposition over the last 3 weeks: Seattle Seahawks, Jacksonville Jaguars, New York Jets, Minnesota Vikings, Indianapolis Colts, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Detroit Lions, Arizona Cardinals, New Orleans Saints, Las Vegas Raiders, and the Chicago Bears kind of make up the top half or so teams in the most ideal matchups for tackle floor production coming into Week 14. Their oppositions have been the most generous to the safety position. Now, if we want to go to the bottom end of that spectrum, the Denver Broncos, Talanoa Hufanga kind of finds himself in a tougher matchup this week. The Commanders, the Texans, the Eagles, Browns, Dolphins, Bengals, Chargers, Cowboys, Bills, Green Bay Packers, and the Pittsburgh Steelers kind of make up the bottom end. It's going to be a little bit tougher for them to go out and have big days. Not to say it can't happen, but their oppositions just haven't been as generous in terms of tackles given up to the safety position. Let's look at sacks given up to safeties. Colts kind of find themselves in a nice little tackle matchup to pair with some big play opportunity. It looks like maybe it looks like Jacksonville has probably given up a couple of sacks, roughly, to the safety position over the last 3 weeks. Almost 1 on average given up. So there's some opportunity there for some plays behind the line of scrimmage. Nick Cross might be able to get back behind the line of scrimmage, get some tackles for loss, and also potentially a sack. He's a guy who will be involved in some blitz packages and is no stranger to big plays behind the line of scrimmage. Minnesota Vikings, Seattle Seahawks, all these teams kind of find themselves in some nice high floor matchups with some potential for big plays as well. So let's filter to pass deflections to safeties. Jacksonville Jaguars kind of find themselves in a nice little sweet spot here where there's a high floor tackles on the table, some sack opportunity even, and then some of the most ideal potential, I guess, for pass deflections in Week 14 as well. New Orleans Saints kind of have a nice floor of tackles available and also some potential big plays in coverage as well. Detroit Lions, kind of another team that's going to have some opportunities in coverage. Brian Branch, Justin Reed if he plays this week, and then like your Andrew Wingard is going to have some added opportunity here for some big plays in Week 14. All right, now let's filter to interceptions and just kind of see what we've got here. Not a whole lot to pair with the interception column. As far as multiple columns with green cells, again, as I mentioned, the more green cells across these statistical columns, the better the matchups. But Minnesota Vikings have given up an interception on average to the safety position over the last 3 weeks. So Washington might have some big opportunities for big plays and coverage, but they also find themselves in a poor tackle matchup, so it might be hard for them to have that floor play. You're really going to be banking on the big play opportunity if you go with some Washington safeties this week. So let's go back to the tackles. If you guys didn't get a screenshot, feel free to do so. Let me just kind of take a look at the bottom end of the matchups as well. All right, everybody. That's going to do it for Week 14 matchup intel. Go gear up those rosters. Throw in any comments down in the comment section, any questions you might have or things you're considering for your IDP teams as you gear up for your playoff push. I'd be happy to lend my opinion. It's not always the right one, but I can make sense or bring logic to the conversation, and we can talk through whatever potential decisions you might be making. So, again, feel free to reach out to me as well on Twitter or X at AxmanIDP. You can, throw me a DM or something. We can talk through it there if that's your preference. But I'll always be checking the YouTube comments as well to get back to you guys in a timely manner. Again, the earlier you can get those comments to me, the more ideal that is. It gives me some time to get back to you. Usually you won't be waiting very long, not even 12 hours or a day max, and that's just if I'm completely busy, but more often than not, I'm going to be checking the comments a lot more often than that. So again, let's talk through some of those decisions, gear up those rosters for that playoff push this week. And good luck out there, everybody. Thank you again for rocking with me each and every week. Let me know if this was helpful. Hopefully we're able to help one or two or a few of you bring home some rings this year. So ride with me. We've got a few more weeks left, and we can talk through any decisions you might be making, and hopefully we can bring home a fantasy championship for you this year. So thanks, everybody, and good luck again. We'll see you back next week or in the comments, and just good luck and have a great week, everybody.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.